I'm very excited to speak with you. I feel like I've been following your career. Like literally, you were on American Idol. I even remember that in 2009. They did not show you enough or at all, really.
Oh my God. That was another experience, man. I
I
did
mean,
not enjoy my time on that.
you got all the way to what they call on in the Idol world the Green Mile, meaning the walk you take to find out if you're going to get on the live shows. And that was, I mean, to my remembrance, the first time they ever showed you, but which
Yeah.
is crazy. But yeah, it's another story. Maybe we'll get into it. But my point is, you've been doing this for a long time. I remember you from that moment because then when your career started to take off, like 6, 7 years ago, I remembered your name and stuff. And now you have the album, Remember Her Name. Yeah, so it's a long time coming, and it must just in general feel really great to finally have your debut album out there.
Man, well, first of all, knowing that you've been following me that long, I'm not going to get emotional, but that really means a lot to me. That American Idol experience wasn't the best experience for me. I'm not a singing competition person. It's amazing for people, but it was just a lot for me. And so that means a lot that you even took the slightest notice of me on that. Yes, it has been a long time coming. Like the fact that I'm here is a miracle. So thank you.
Do you feel the timing is right? Because I wonder, or maybe I wonder if you wonder, if this album had come out 5 years ago or 10 years ago, would the country world maybe not have been ready for it? Would it be as well received as it has been? You've had such a great last year with all your television appearances and such.
You know, I truly believe it had to happen exactly now. I mentally was not ready back 5 years ago. I was mentally not ready. When I was on American Idol, there was a lot of self-discovery that I hadn't discovered until like the last 3, 4 years. And so there's a grounding that has happened to me. And it had happened sooner, I might be strung out somewhere unwell, to be honest.
Really? What do you do? You mean that? You mean that literally?
I do. Absolutely. I think I could have been under a lot of influences.
Wow. Did you ever, since you brought that up, is that something you've struggled with in the past or?
You know, I definitely struggled with drinking. You know, Nashville is a drinking town. Some of my first writing experiences was with a woman who had her flask of Jack Daniels at 11 in the morning. And I was like, oh, and it from then on. And so I actually quit drinking September 2019.
Oh, wow.
Right into the pandemic. I'll have a glass of wine here and there, but I really needed to cut myself off. Like I was drinking out of 365 days out of the year, I was probably drinking 365 days out of the year. So I needed a break. And yeah.
I was just wondering if you talk about it being kind of the culture of Nashville, but was any of that because of, I know this album, Remember Her Name, is kind of about all the struggles you've had career wise. Like I said, it's been a long time coming to have this album come to fruition. Was, let's talk about kind of the stressors of trying to make it in the country industry, especially as a woman of color, obviously.
It was really hard. There were for a long time, I ran away from everything that makes me different. I ran away from my Blackness. I ran away from everything that makes me different because I was trying so hard to fit into this tiny box that I just did not fit in. I just didn't. And in doing so, all the events in Nashville and me trying to prove that I'm this girl next door, great time kind of a person, that was a very toxic environment. Was it intentional for some people? I don't think so. But as time went on, it was just really, truly not good for me. And it was hard. And what do you do when you cope with things? What do you do when you don't have anything else to do? And me, it was drinking. It was me drinking wine. Like that was definitely something that helped cope with where I was. And for a long time, I was in a pretty dark space in that sense.
I'm sorry to hear that, but obviously you are in a better place now. Did you have an epiphany in your career or in your personal life or both that sort of got you out of that place?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in about 2018, either it was 2017 or 2018, I was with my husband. We were sitting at a bar having an extremely honest conversation, honest about our marriage, honest about our past mistakes. And it got to the point where we were talking about my career. And I just asked him, I said, why do you think country music isn't working for me? And that's what he said, because you're running away from everything that makes you different. And he said, why aren't you singing country songs from your perspective? Why are you trying to write somebody else's perspective of country music? That's not your life. That's not your perspective. And it was like fireworks and light bulbs, everything all at once. And I was like, wow, why am I not doing that? And so I really started writing my honest to God's truth, whether it was going to make someone feel uncomfortable or not. I was just going to write about that because I felt like it was important. It was kind of cathartic and therapy for me.
That's amazing. So, I mean, I do wonder if anyone advised you in the business or if you ever thought about this yourself, in that because it is changing, but because there are so few Black people who are successful in country music, again, thankfully this is changing, that maybe someone said, why don't you try pop music instead? Why don't you try R&B music instead? Did you ever consider thinking maybe another genre I'd make more inroads more quickly?
I had plenty of those conversations. I've had plenty of those conversations in my DMs of people saying, why don't you go take your Black ass out of country music and go to such and such? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And for me, I don't really see myself in any other genre. Like, I feel that I am country music. And I definitely, in some of my lowest moments, I thought about it, but as soon as I thought about it, I'm like, what does that even look like for me? I've been doing this so long, I don't even know how to change my voice to sound like something else. And it just wasn't an option for me as I thought about it.
I mean, I know this is kind of a loaded question and an open-ended one, but I'm sure it's one you've been asked before, is why do you think that for so long, and it's still a problem, that there are so few Black artists in country music? There's lots of Black artists, lots of Black people who love country music and come from the South, come from country background, but yet the gatekeepers have kept it pretty whitewashed up until, I mean, it still is, let's face it. But why do you think that is? And do you think it is changing?
Well, I started thinking, for me in my own personal career, when my husband called me out, like hard about the direction I was going in my career, I started really looking within and also trying to think, okay, in order for country music to truly work for Black people, it is not enough for a Black country star to come up every 50 years. Just one, or maybe a couple trickled here and there. Like, there has to be a plethora of talented, extremely talented Black country artists to walk in the door with me. And I realized that the little platform I have, I started just looking for every Black country artist that I could find and posting about it, because I knew a lot of people in my industry that are just on the industry side of things follow me. So I thought I would just start putting them out there and just showing them on my page. And then the reaction was just, oh my God, this is so amazing. And so I think the reason why there haven't been so many Black country stars in country music, because there hasn't been anybody truly holding the door open for other country artists.
Sorry, go ahead.
And I feel that as artists, yes, like, we want to make it, like, that is our goal. But I think in all of our respective careers, it's important. Mentorship is extremely important. And you opening the door for somebody else is not going to take away your success. Period. No matter what industry you're in. And so I just started doing that, like mentoring, like helping Black artists. If I find one, like helping build a team around them, like, what can I do to make this playing field more even. And that's what I'm doing. I'll let you know what happens, but that's kind of the approach that I've started taking.
Are there any artists you'd like to shout out while I've got you?
Yes, there's a woman, her name is Madeline Edwards.
Okay.
She is from California, but also in the whole Austin City Lights area. And she is incredible. Like, she has a gospel song out called This Road, but her country voice, she plays the piano, jazz, all of that, but she has an incredible country voice, and she loves country music, and she is someone to look out for. She is amazing. There's a girl named Brittany Spencer. I think she brings sultry soulfulness into country music. She's incredible. There's a girl named Raina Roberts. She's incredible. There's even a guy named Rashad who is awesome. He's like a black Jason Aldean. Like, he's so great. So those are the people I would shout out.
Awesome. I'm going to make note of all those. Brittany I'd heard of. The others I'm going to check out.
Oh, you're going to love Madeline.
Awesome.
Listen to her song, This Road. She is so good. Road.
Awesome. So yeah, I was asking if you did think things are changing. I think they are a little bit slowly. But obviously, the Morgan Wallen situation has shown that, he's bigger than ever, despite him, using a slur or whatever. It didn't seem to, even him getting canceled from things didn't really get him canceled. So what are your thoughts about where country music is at in terms of inclusivity in 2021?
I think there are a lot of people in the music industry that do really want to see the change, that are really trying to do the work to see the change. There are fans that have been not so kind
to you.
Yeah, especially me. Just go on any of the platforms like CMT, CMA, whatever, and they post a picture of me and just look at the comments. That'll tell you all that you need to hear.
I don't want to see that. Yeah, but yeah, I can imagine.
And that's something you can't control. But internally, I think people within the industry are trying to make that change. And I do see some of that change. When I do something with CMT, when I did their CMT Giants for Charlie Pride, they had Black people behind the scenes working on stage and working with production. I had never seen that before. And so people are making conscious efforts. It's going to take some time. It's going to take time and work. And I've told them to use me whenever you want to talk to a historically Black college, university, and you're trying to get interns to come to your record labels. I'll talk to them. And it's just a life's work that I will continue to do in order to make this industry more inclusive. Does it ever,
the term, to use a common term, the emotional labor of it, does it ever get to you? Because I do remember, since I mentioned the Morgan Wallen thing, that when you did, like a lot of people in the industry, stand up against what he had said, you got flack for it, like the kind of flack you're talking about, like the comments that getting, it must take its toll sometimes. What's your self-care for that?
Yes, it is really, really hard. And I'd be lying if I was like, oh, you brush it off and everything's okay. And the cyberbullying is on a whole different level of, I've never seen anything like it. So I've started making a conscious effort to really not be on social media as much. It's actually really good for anybody's health, everybody's health. Antidepressants have helped me tremendously. I was in a really bad space when I had gotten a lot of that hate. I was 9 months pregnant when I got a lot of that hate. So put on top of that the hormones that you're dealing with on top of a new baby. It's a lot. It is a lot. And that was difficult for me. And it took me some time to heal from that. Working out releases a lot of dopamine that gets you in a better space. So I kind of do that. And then my son is just this beautiful precious human being that really helps me. So I just kind of try to focus on that.
Well, congratulations on that. To spin it a little more positively, when we're talking about how, things are changing, do you have a moment that you look back on as kind of like a watershed moment? For me, I think it was the ACMs when you performed Black Like Me was it the ACMs? Sometimes I get okay, sorry. There's so many award shows. I'm like CMA, CMTs,
so
ACMs.
Many award shows.
But when you performed, I just remember it being like one of the most talked about moments of the night. And like, I'd love to talk about that moment, but I'd love to also talk about any other moments where you felt like things were really finally coming together for you in your career.
That was a huge moment for me, being able to sing a country song with an all Black choir standing behind me, and singing next to Miranda Lambert and Maren Morris. All three of us are such different versions of country music. That was such a powerful moment. And that was one and on top of that I'd given birth to my baby a month before that.
Oh, wow.
So imagine even me fitting in that dress, a lot more to me fitting in that dress. Okay. But that was definitely an incredible moment. There was another moment at the very start of the pandemic. I sang at this thing in Nashville called Country Radio Seminar Week. And I sang at the Ryman. I sang my song, What Are You Going to Tell Her? And it was a song about the oppression of women. And I sang it in front of a bunch of country radio program directors, majority men. And to sing that song in that moment, that was a moment where I was either going to make my career or kill my career. And I was prepared to end my career singing that. And the fact that it didn't, and instead it elevated it, that was another moment. And then hosting the ACM Awards, that was another cool one too.
I do want to ask more about What Are You Going to Tell Her, which is my favorite song on the album. The first time I heard it, it was like, and I mean this in a good way, like a punch to the gut. Like I started crying. Oh my God. How do you not? I couldn't sing it, let alone listen to it. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think regardless of your background or whatever, if you're a woman, we've all had that moment where we're like, oh, I can't be president actually. Or like, oh, I've been told all my life that I could be whatever I want to be, or I'm, do whatever boys do. And it's actually like not that simple. Tell me about what inspired you to write that song. Cause I think every woman can relate to that song in some way. Well, crazy to think I wrote that song in 2020. Oh, right. I was inspired at a Grammy after party, a universal Grammy after party in LA. I went to the Grammy after party, walked the red carpet, was like, at one point in time, the woman was like, you're in the wrong line. You need to be going to the general admission. I was like, no, I'm an artist. It was really embarrassing, but I remember. For her, not for you. Should have been embarrassing for her. But I went in that party and I remember looking around. I saw Billie Eilish and I saw all of these powerful women that have had successful careers. And I was completely sober. And I remember looking around and thinking, man, like what they had to go through to get to this point. And what they're still going through, the things that we don't know and we don't see. I can't imagine it's any different from your walk as it is different from my walk. It's the same. And it made me incredibly sad. And the next morning I flew at 6 a.m. to Nashville to write with some of my favorite songwriters. And this was on my mind. And I was really sad. I'm emo as it is. And we wrote this song, all women that have all faced this exact type of oppression. And it turned out to be one of my favorite songs on the album too. And one, like when I heard the finished product, like you, I sobbed really. When we're talking about things that people had to go through to get to this point, I don't mean this in any weird way, but are you 37 now? 38. And you're just hitting your major career stride, first album. Now that's actually kind of a rarity in the business. In this business, if you're 25 in this business and you're already considered too old then. Yeah. So I'd love to talk about how it sort of ties in what I was asking you before about how would you have had this success had this happened 10 years ago or so? Like, how did you buck the odds that in an industry, particularly for women, that's so youth obsessed, you are hitting, your career peak at the age you're at now, which again, I don't think is old. I'm talking about how the industry perceives things.
Trust and believe, it's something that I've thought about as well. Like, why would anybody ever want to hear from me?
Well,
and there's a lot of stigmas and things that we have been fed that are wrong. That your career is not over at 25. Your career is not over at 35. Your career is not over at 38. Your career is not over at 45. These are all, your career is not over if you have a baby. The thing is like, it's wrong. Like ageism and age shaming is wrong. Like, our perspective is just as important as anybody else's perspective. And I think, and I hope that this type of success can be a precursor for the future of artists, and that it gives people still that drive to still want to pursue their dreams. Like that type of thinking is so ancient and wrong. It's the same as you seeing models that are 5'12" or like 6 foot and like a stick. Like, there's big body models. There are average looking people like myself on the street that should be able to model too. Like, every body is important and representation matters in every way. And so I hope that I can represent the future in a sense.
Absolutely. Did you ever have any talk from people in the industry or whatever that, were saying that ship has sailed, give it up? Or did you have any of those thoughts yourself?
I had all of those thoughts myself. I'm sure the industry had all of those thoughts themselves. And that's perfectly fine. I think it's perfectly fine and it's perfectly natural. Like 2 years ago, I was thinking, why would anybody want to hear from me? I don't have anything to say, is what I said like 2 to 3 years ago.
Wow.
And I realized I have so much to say, and I have so much more to say because of the things that I've learned.
So let's talk about a few of the other songs on the album. I definitely want to ask about the latest single, I Love My Hair. Definitely what inspired, I mean, obviously it's about hair, but like, what inspired you to write this song?
So I was inspired by 2 different situations. There was one situation where I saw a video on YouTube of this little Black girl being sent home from school because the school said that her hair was distracting. For me, that was just so triggering, and within my own world and how I felt about my own hair. And of course I wear extensions and all of that for the look for entertainment purposes. But the struggle for women, especially Black women, our hair is so different from everybody else's. And there's so many complexes that we have, and growing up self-hating because society has made us feel like we don't belong. And that was something that I really wanted to write about and write a song, a love song to our hair, no matter what it looks like. And for you to love that, no matter what it looks like, and no matter what you choose to do with your hair, that you love it. And I think it's really touched a lot of people so far, and it speaks to a lot of women. And I'm just so glad that I stuck with my guns, because I tried to write it a few times and people didn't understand it. And then I found someone who did, and it just turned out so beautiful.
When you say people, do you mean label people?
I went into different writing sessions, and I said, I really want to write a song called Love My Hair. And it was just not the right writing room. They didn't understand what I was saying. But when I found the right person, she got it immediately.
Who was that?
Anna Krantz is her name.
Awesome. Is that something?
I wrote it in at the Brother Osborne, their house. I wrote it at their house.
Oh, very cool. Regarding just the general subject of that song, did Is that something you struggle with in the industry? All women do, obviously, but I would imagine, especially as a woman of color in country, would be on another level in terms of styling, how you should present yourself, how you should dress, what you should look like in your photos and videos.
All of that. Girl, speaking my language right now. Yes, man. And it also brought me to my own struggles with my own hair within this industry. There were so many times that I was on a red carpet that I didn't like the way I looked because I would ask people, I need to make sure someone knows how to do black hair, how to do a black person's makeup. And they would say, oh, well, this person says they do black hair and black makeup. And then I would go, and then I got smart and I started going on their Instagram pages and seeing, if I didn't see any black people on their Instagram page, I was like, they don't know how to do black hair. They don't know how to do black makeup. They're just saying that to get the job. Mm-hmm. Well, I kept being affected by that. And then I got smart. But in that, when it came to me getting my hair done, living in Nashville, when I did the ACMs and the saying with Chrissy Metz a few years ago, I literally, like the day before the ACM Awards, I had to get in my car at 5 a.m., drive all the way to Atlanta for my hair appointment, get my hair done, get my lace front wig put on, the whole thing, then get in my car and drive all the way back to Nashville to pack my bag and get on a flight to go to Vegas because I didn't have anybody that knew how to do my hair.
How long a drive is that?
3.5, 4 hours.
One way?
One way. So
you drove 7-8 hours just to have someone do your hair right. That just is ridiculous. I mean, the fact that you had to do that is ridiculous, is what I mean.
But that was the only way that I could even get someone to do my hair and feel confident in it.
Mm-hmm. But I'm also wondering if like labels, what they had to say about how you're marketed or what your image and styling was like.
Beginning, they're like, oh, well, we need to keep the look consistent because it's going to confuse people with how you look. But I'm like, I'm a black girl. Like one day we can have our hair this long. The next I can have a pixie cut. The next day I can have it blonde. It's like, which one do you want? And they just didn't understand that.
But you eventually took ownership. But it sounds like you're in a position now where in general, whether it's how you physically present yourself or, artistically, you seem to finally be in a real place where you have a lot of control. How did you, again, bucking the odds, get to a place where you finally have, that kind of control?
There was a lot of trial and error. There was a lot of missteps. And then finally, and what I'd learned, Estelle was the one that told me this. Is Estelle said that your gut instinct is 100% correct. And that is something that I have taken with me. And I realize like if it's in my gut, that I'm going to follow that and I'm going to speak up. And speaking up doesn't mean that you're a bitch. It doesn't mean that you're a diva. It doesn't mean any of that. But speaking up, nobody's going to care about your career more than you. And that is something that I've had to learn. And in doing so, it has changed everything.
Did you have that fear that I think women of all walks of life sort of have a fear of being labeled difficult or a bitch, basically?
Absolutely. 100%. And I've learned how to say things, and I'm still learning, but how to get my point across without, and I can't worry about how people feel. And that's something I'm still learning. I've still tried to word things a little nicer just so people can understand my point, but I'm starting to be way more assertive.
That's awesome. Well, since we're talking about speaking out, of course, I have to ask about the title track, Remember Her Name, and the fact that you chose to name the album after that song. And obviously, I assume it was written about, Breonna Taylor, but maybe some other events that were going on in 2020.
Yeah, I was definitely inspired by that because every time I would see Breonna Taylor's name, it would be like, say her name, remember her name. And that was something that that title rang so true for me. And then as I was writing the song, it started turning into my story as well. And I think a lot of women's stories, when we start off our careers and start out in life, we're so certain about what we want to do for the most part. We're so certain that this is our path. And then life gets in the way and so often can shatter everything that we knew about ourselves. But it's important to remember that that girl is still there. Like the girl I am now, the woman I am now, I was on my way to that when I first moved to Nashville. I was writing really progressive, really cool songs, and they were stopped at the door because nobody wanted that. And I should have stuck with that person. And now she's back. And that's what Remember Her Name is about.
Yay, I'm glad she's back. I guess one question I want to ask that sort of wraps up all that stuff is I've asked, about the barriers, the obstacles, whether it was about race, whether it was about age or genre. Like, was there ever a moment where you really were like, you know what, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm going to get a regular job or do something else. And what made you, tell me about that, but if that happened, but also what made you keep going?
Yes. Oh my God. Like 2019, I was ready to stop it all.
Really?
100%. Sometimes on a daily, I'm like, why did I choose to do this? Like, this makes no sense. I remember crying to my husband, mad at him because he would never let me quit. I'd be ready to go. I'm done. My lease is up at my apartment here. I'm just going to move back home because not only was I was in Nashville pursuing this dream for so long, I was out without my husband. Long distance. So I was alone and so was he. And so I was just frustrated and angry. Why am I doing this? And he kept saying, because you need to be here. If you're not there, you're like every Black girl that wants to sing country music, that dream is gone if you're not there. And I was like, fine. And I'm so glad I didn't stop. It's a miracle, truly a miracle that I'm here.
I'm glad you didn't stop either because, I wanted an album out from you a while ago. I know you've done EPs and stuff, but I wanted a full album with a real story to tell. And it's here, Remember Her Name. And everyone's going to remember your name. I mean, you're trailblazer.
Thank you.